Back in 2018, I played Visage, a horror game that took place inside an uncanny house with ever-changing corridors and intense, silent atmosphere. The game takes heavy inspiration from the cancelled project PT Silent Hill, because what you'll discover is a house that tells stories through liminal spaces and disturbing events that increase the tension of the overall experience. I was just getting into horror games at the time, and I think I bit off a bit more than I could chew, because after about 2 hours, I dropped the game. I was way too scared. Now, after playing so many different horror games, after traversing through psychological horror, intense chase scenes, and terrifying environments, I picked up the game once more, and this time I tried to beat it. However, even after 7 years, I still could not complete it. But it was for a different reason entirely. Welcome to an episode of Horror Quest, where we embark on a journey to find the best and scariest horror games. Today's episode is all about Visage, so let's begin. Without further ado, my name is Josh, also known as Garban, and I hope you enjoy. The game begins with a hazy drunk-like cutscene of someone, presumably the father, executing his family and then himself. What a great way to start a game. Visage wastes no time in distorting your senses and confusing your perspective, because then you immediately wake up in the basement and enter the house. Did that cutscene just happen, or was it a flashback? At this point, you have no idea. One of the best things about Visage is the atmosphere. When you enter the house for the first time, it's instinctively a problem. For me, what makes the atmosphere so intense is the silence. There's no music in the game to tell you how to feel, barely any noise to take away from the suffocating quiet. It's just you and this ever-present house. Which, by the way, what kind of house design is this? It might be like from the 1900s or something, but it looks like it was specifically designed for a horror movie. And in that regard, it actually does pretty well. It's claustrophobic, confusing at first. It's very dark and depressing. It feels almost like the house is alive in a way. The way the game sets itself up and locks the player from going outside makes it feel like we're trapped or in a separate space from the outside world. It's quite clever. This is where most of the game takes place, and by no means did I ever get comfortable. It is the perfect setting for a horror game. After exploring the house for a bit, the game informs you about paranormal activities and your sanity gauge. As you walk around the house, random paranormal events will happen and drain your sanity. The lower your sanity, the more paranormal events will occur, and eventually you die from it. These range from lights flickering, the grandfather clock sounding off, doors closing, knocks from inside the walls, and even apparitions appearing before you. It's best to keep that mental state afloat with some pills and plenty of light sources. Visage gives you a dynamic inventory to carry pills, candles that you can light, a lighter, and some chapter-specific items so that they're easily accessible. There's not as much inventory management as, say, Resident Evil, but it does play a role in the game, so I thought it was worth at least mentioning. Now, the goal of this game is to discover the mystery behind the people who lived and died in this house. There are 4 chapters in the game, including our character, and you can tackle each chapter in any non-specific order. Now, when I first played the game, there was only one chapter at the time, and that was Lucy's chapter. So let's talk about her story as a representation of the game as a whole, to give you an idea of what the game's about. Going upstairs, we find a picture of a hand-drawn panda bear. If you decide to pick it up, this will initiate Lucy's chapter. This is her room, where her story begins. In classic horror game fashion, the closet door opens up ominously, and we can enter to find a child's drawing of a rather creepy entity that knocks when you knock. Outside, we can find one of Lucy's stuffed animals, weirdly placed where the knocking was coming from. Whenever you begin a chapter, the house opens up more, so it gives you access to the living room, the kitchen, and the basement. There's also the garage, but it's not needed for this chapter. We find the basement key and head down promptly. Again, I was reminded by how well designed the house is from a horror perspective. Because, seriously, who would ever design a basement like this? Near the TV, horse breathing can be heard coming from one of the dark rooms. A jump scare, perhaps? No, but this game loves to twist sound design into something sinister to mess with the player. It works really well because when I first played the game, I froze every single time I heard a noise. Because when contrasted with a complete silence, a simple light switch sound effect can make your heart skip a beat. In this case, it's Lucy guiding us towards the main key item for her chapter: a camera. You can use the camera to create a momentary flash of light to illuminate hidden scenes or simply light up your surroundings. Because it acts like a light source, even though it's not very powerful, you can maintain your sanity with the camera, I would say like 90% of the time. Still, I would recommend eating pills every now and then. Here, with each flash, we reveal hidden drawings on the walls that guide us deeper into the basement. This is where Lucy greets us for the first time. Playing this game 7 years ago, I would have ejected a brown snake larger than 3 pounds. But now, I realize it's a scripted event where the player can't even interact with Lucy. So you're totally safe to enjoy the show with front row seats. You can't even get that close, there's like an invisible wall preventing you from going any closer. Or maybe that's ghost magic. Even though I remember things up until this point, it's still crazy to see my progression of tolerance over 7 years of playing horror games. I was not scared in the slightest, but again, it's probably because I remembered this part. With the camera in hand, we can find scribbled drawings that lead us back upstairs towards one of the rooms to find a giant drawing of Lucy and her insidious friend. So now we know that Lucy was experiencing some sort of presence within the house, what with the knocking and her drawings indicating some sort of shrouded spirit. Again, even the chapter's subtitle tells us this too. The game at this point doesn't tell us where to go next. You do get a hint, but it's kinda hard to tell where it is. Definitely not the ominously glowing red door. I think any sane person would turn away and leave the house at this point, but according to the opening cutscene, we're not. What occurs is a transition into one of Lucy's memories. Going past the not-so-subtle sign of guilt, we find Lucy's treehouse. It's here where we get the story of how Lucy met this sinister demon. I like how it's told through her drawings. It's a really clever change from the basic notes or files that I've seen a lot of horror games do. So the story we have so far is that this demon or whatever it is reaching out to Lucy through the radio and her TV. Eventually, it somehow crossed into her real life and possesses her. She becomes angry, sad, and isolated, with this insidious friend now controlling her life. Eventually, the spirit forces her to kill her own bird, and the parents obviously think it was her. If we explore behind the pages, we find a key that unlocks the box on the floor. This reveals the last page to the story where Lucy is injected with a needle of unknown medicine. Now, my assumption at the time was that the parents drugged her to stop with the weird behaviors. But this is still a crucial part of her story because when we first saw her, she drops an empty needle on the ground. Afterwards, the radio flicks on.
Your parents wouldn't understand, Lucy. Only you can understand. Get rid of it, Lucy. Do it, Lucy. Do it. Get rid of it, Lucy.
It's terrifying to see how the spirit talked to her, manipulated her, and how much power it had over Lucy. I think it's a powerful scene in her story that actually puts us in her position for a moment and immerses us. I did kind of ruin it when I found a secret doll from my collection and Steam gave me the achievement sound for it, but whatever, it's still scary. When we exit the treehouse, we're brought back into the basement, and all of the light switches have now been removed from the entire house. Yes, the one thing keeping your sanity in check, light, has been removed for the remainder of the chapter. Luckily, the camera provides some relief, and you won't be staying in the house for the entire time anyway, so it's actually not that bad. This is where my first playthrough ended, because I decided I had enough. I was too scared and I didn't want to play anymore, so I went back to Monster Hunter. From this point on, everything was new to me. A trail of light switches leads you back upstairs to Lucy's room, where we see her sitting on the ground. And then we get one of the more tasteful jump scares in the game. Visage does a great job of choosing its jump scares wisely. It's not overdone, it's not cheap, but used in clever ways to shock the player, but also to reveal something important. This jump scare shows us a glimpse of what Lucy's demon looks like. It creates questions, evokes curiosity, while still being an intense moment that stuck with me for the rest of the game. We have to loop around the parents' room to get into Lucy's room, and inside we find a door colored onto the wall that wasn't there before. Much like in the cartoons, it's an actual door into an alternate world. Now this section would be one of the scariest parts of the game if I didn't solve it so quickly. Basically, you have to find a key to the door on the other side of the room while Lucy tries to find you. The key is randomly generated each time, and yeah, I died once, but that was mainly because I wanted to see the death animation in case I needed footage for it. But when I respawned, I found the key in the first place I looked in and promptly walked past her. What follows is one of the worst chase scenes I've ever experienced in a video game. I don't even know if it qualifies as a chase scene. You literally speed walk forward and you're fine. Visage does this a couple of times, and I guess it's a way to create some sort of transition without putting a loading screen to make an artificial cut. If that's the case, that's fine. I get it in that regard. But the thing is, you don't run in this game. You go from a snail's pace to a sloth. It's really not that much of a difference. Without the music telling you that she's chasing you, I would have been none the wiser. What follows is a cutscene where we get to see the demon in full glory. You're now back upstairs. You find a mannequin jaw in the bathroom, and inside the basement, there's a newly placed mannequin missing said jaw. Also the rest of her head, but we can ignore that. Now, I think it's important to mention here that I was using a walkthrough for the entirety of Lucy's chapter, and I will go into further detail about this, but what I want you to understand is that Visage is a very, very hard game. It tells you this before a new game is even created. Now, it's not hard in the fact that you'll keep dying like a Souls game, but it's difficult because this game does not tell you what to do in the slightest. A good portion of people who've played this game needed help to solve puzzles, or even on what the next objective is. It is aggravating to play a game that forces you to wander around aimlessly to progress. But again, I'll get into more detail later. Right next to the mannequin is a wardrobe. Open it and take 3 pictures inside to piss off the spirit. You'll be transported into a liminal space with multiple wardrobes that contribute nothing to the story or gameplay. I don't actually really understand this room because what you actually need to find is a hole in the corner that leads to a different room. Like, why is it here? Regardless, you enter another liminal space where there's an upside down room with the shadow of a spooky man covering the space. Interact with the carpet to enter the final and largest liminal space in Lucy's chapter. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because it's mostly just puzzles, there's not really much to analyze here, but just know that there's multiple pieces you need to find, paths you need to cross, and a jump scare that's disguised as the way forward. Again, very tasteful. I like this one. Throughout this entire sequence, there isn't much story revealed here because we have about 80% of the entire plot already. So I'll skip ahead here to the final part, where you're transported back into the bathroom and have to submerge yourself inside the tub. The spirit is also stalking you from outside, so that's cool. This is where the full story is revealed. We already know that Lucy encountered this demon through the radio and TV. It tormented her and possessed her to kill her pet bird, who we now know is named Pico. This is why there's so many bird cages and imagery associated with it in her chapter. What I got wrong was the parents didn't drug her, the doctor did. He prescribed some sort of medication via needle injection, but it only made her mental state worse. When we resurface, we see the demon terrorizing Lucy, until eventually she snaps and breaks off her own jaw, dying from blood loss while her parents bang on the door desperately trying to save her. It really is a tragic story that was easily my favorite in the entire game. Now, I used her story as a representation of Visage as a whole because it's not just about the house, but the awful events that resulted to our inhabitants. Visage starts off slow but has building tension to create an uneasy, uncanny environment that emphasizes the chapters told here. Now obviously, the title of the video is why this horror game took me 7 years to play again, but to pull back the curtain a little bit, the original title was going to be why this horror game took me 7 years to beat. This was scrapped because I didn't want to lie to you guys, because I have not beaten Visage, even after making this video. And again, it wasn't because it was too scary, but because I found it to be incredibly boring and frustrating. So, why exactly? Firstly, let me reiterate that the horror of Visage is great. The house is awesome, the sound design is incredible, the jump scares are impactful, and the tension is tasteful. Some of the imagery is fantastic too. Like in Lucy's chapter, you have to find a board to cross this gap, and inside are a bunch of skinheads standing around in the dark. It's eerie, but I like it, it's really cool. Even the negative reviews don't deny that this is a good horror game, but that the gameplay is frustrating and very boring, and with that I agree. The first I've already hinted towards because this game doesn't tell you diddy piddly squat. on what to do or how to do it. There were moments during Lucy's playthrough that I know I wouldn't have figured out, or at least it would have taken me twice as long to figure out if I didn't have a walkthrough. And her chapter, trust me, isn't nearly as bad, because Dolores' chapter is the absolute worst. This was the second chapter I played in the game, and this is the part where I decided I'm just gonna quit the game altogether. The way her chapter is structured is very confusing, and I'll give you a few examples. Basically, when you start her chapter, multiple mirrors will be placed around the entire house, leading to liminal spaces of a small variety. You have to find your way into the garage and pull out the sledgehammer to smash the mirrors to discover said spaces. The problem is, Dolores' chapter is non-linear, so there's no right way to tackle anything, which means you'll discover mirrors that have dead ends because you don't have the right puzzle piece yet. Like, I discovered a mirror that led to this outside place and would teleport me back into the starting area because I didn't have the compass then. I found a window with an item behind the glass that I could not reach because I didn't have the crowbar yet. This kept on going for most mirrors until eventually I found the one item that started this chain reaction of solving the other puzzles in each mirror. But again, this game does not tell you where you need to go. And especially this one puzzle. Hold on, let me explain this because this is ridiculous. In Dolores' bedroom, if you look through the peephole, there's a couple of pictures that you have to memorize, but you don't know what it's for yet. In another liminal space, there's all these frames on the floor, and there's 3 spots that you have to place the paintings in. So you basically have to memorize those 3 paintings from Dolores' room, and then go all the way here, discover this liminal space, and put them in the right order. I make it seem like it's connected, but it's not. It's very disjointed. Because for me, I discovered this room where you have to put up the paintings like 2 hours later. It made no sense why it happened so much later. And again, I know I keep on stretching this, but the game doesn't tell you anything. It was already difficult for such a linear storyline like Lucy's, but with Dolores' multiple mirrors that have no exact order, you'll get lost quickly and often. For me, what it does is it squashes any momentum the game had. It kills all the horror that the game built up until this point because I'm not scared, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, to the point where I've decided to stop playing. And look, I get it. It's also about expectations, because I did not expect that I would have to play Visage with a walkthrough on my second screen for a majority of the game. I thought I would be able to fully immerse myself and not get stuck every 5 minutes. It really does kill any horror the game has. I know it sounds like I hate puzzles, but I don't, okay? Because I love games like Silent Hill. And there's also a balance between puzzles and action. When it's only puzzles and when they're incredibly hard to figure out, the progression of the game feels like a 46-year-old roller coaster in a constant state of oscillation, which means it's going back and forth. And it's just begging to be put down. Which relates to my second problem, and it's that the horror is great for the first couple of hours. But afterwards, you get kinda used to it once the puzzles start to take over. I'm not saying that a good horror game has to be scary the entire time, but this game's horror fizzled out, I think, way too quickly. The random paranormal events became a part of the routine, and I got so familiar with it, they just became nothing of substance. Not to mention the pills. They basically erase any sanity decrease, and there's virtually no threat once you realize that. It felt like a chore to play the game, and that's when I decided I had enough. It was hard for me to do that because I've always told myself I have to finish the game, I have to finish the game. But I realized, especially after making content for a bit, that I don't need to do that. I can still make a video on a game if I really want to and not complete it, and then explain why I didn't, which is what I'm doing right now. This next part, I may be a bit nitpicky when I say, but also the monsters or enemies were mostly uninspiring. Besides the demon in Lucy's chapter, from what I've seen, most other enemies are the fallen victims in the house, which to me is not like good or creepy. Like, I love creepy creature designs, so of course it's my preference that I want creatures or monsters over an old granny that doesn't really change. I'm currently playing Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, and even though it's a Souls-like action game, some of the bosses would be horrific if put in the same lighting as Visage. And look, I know it sounds like I don't like the game, but I really do. It was a horror game that has been ingrained into my mind for 7 years, and now I can finally rest knowing that I've faced my fears and conquered them, even though it was a bit anticlimactic, but I still did it. Overall, Visage is a good horror game that unfortunately doesn't have much substance to its gameplay because it is, put simply, a glorified walking simulator with puzzles, but it does still excel in atmosphere and sound design. One of the best things about Visage are the paranormal events because they add such flair and uniqueness to the game that I haven't seen done anywhere else. Yes, I know I said it died for me after a couple of hours because I understood that nothing would really happen, but I can still acknowledge that it was a great mechanic. When it comes to the spooky scale, grading based on the terror and horror I experienced, Visage scores a solid 7. Would I recommend it? I mean, if you like puzzles and like slower paced games, sure, Visage is your type of game. I mean, for me, I like action in my horror games. Survival horror, or Fear and Hunger. That one's crazy. I know a lot of you have been asking me to play the second game. I will, okay? I'm just waiting for the big update. And that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any recommendations for the next episode, let me know. And as of right now, I have a Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate video in the works, as well as Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care everyone, and of course, stay safe.